Alright, Issei, Wacky Anime What If? I'm redoing part 3. I didn't like how it turned out. So, we're gonna continue where Issei has just woken up. He decided to get up out of his bed, and Albion decided to ask him more about his past. But Issei just says, shouldn't we focus on other things like who's the next Red Dragon Emperor? Or something like that. I prefer to focus on that. Considering my life is on the line, then Albion says, fine, fine. Who do you think it is, though? And yeah, well, Issei doesn't really know. But he can't help but constantly wonder about this while getting up and going downstairs. Leaving his room, going downstairs, decides to go ahead and make some, breakfast for him and Azazel. Azazel is already downstairs. Issei makes some eggs, bacon, some strawberry pancakes, and yeah, they're just eating. They just sit at the table. Azazel and Issei start eating. Azazel ends up asking Issei, is he ever going to get like a girl or something? Because Azazel kind of sees him more as a loner right now, and that's not very healthy. He chuckles while saying this, and Issei ends up just having cold stare saying, well, people just betray everyone else. I prefer not having a huge circle of friends, or supposed friends. If they're just going to betray you later on, it's better not to have that many. Azazel understands Issei's past a little, so he kind of just agrees with the sentiment, but ends up asking the big hitter. Azazel asks, do you want to become a part of my barrage? Which Issei is contemplating still, but decides to give an answer. He decides, no, I do not want to become a part of your barrage. I want to crush the Rias Grimoire and the whole Grimoire family with my merits alone and my own power, without any assistance from anyone else. I will become the one thing that all of them will fear and tremble when they think about. And Azazel smiles at his conviction, which Issei very much hates Grimoire. Like very much hates her. But Issei hates someone else even more, which would be Kiba. So, yeah, Issei decides to head to school, just walks outside, about to head to school, and then Azazel puts on his ring, walks out with Issei, and says, hey, I'm going to school with you. I just transferred there. And then Issei says, aren't you a little bit too old to go to school? And he says, well, aren't you a little bit too weird to be at school? Then Issei says that that's not the same. You're like 1,000 years old or something. And then Azazel says, shut up. I'm not that old. And then Issei says, oh, whatever you say, Gramps. And then they start, just talking while walking. They make it to Ko Academy. They see this one, Issei sees this one weird guy walk in. Doesn't really talk to him, but seems unfamiliar to him, yet familiar at the same time. It almost triggered another flashback, but Azazel snaps him out of it and asks what's wrong, And Issei tells him, I almost had another flashback. PTSD. Azazel understands, because Azazel has PTSD too. It's not as severe. So they both walk into the school through the front gate. And they go up the stairs, about to head to the classroom, walking down the hallway. Then all of a sudden, Koniko, a wild Koniko, appears behind them. Azazel's like, I think she's still pissed that you didn't give her any sweets before. And then Issei's like, I don't give a fuck. And the Koniko heard this and was like very steaming. Like, they could sense bloodlust from behind them. And Issei was just laughing. Azazel was a little panicked. You know, just like funnily panicked. Not actually seeing her as a threat, but was just doing it for comedic purposes. So they just walked to class. Koniko followed. So they went up to Issei went up to his seat. Azazel introduced himself to everyone and says, my name's Ali. My name's Ali. And they said, oh, hello, Ali. They just like greeted him and everything. The females were kind of, you know, liked how he looked. And then Issei said, oh yeah, one more thing, Ali. Which he doesn't call him Ali, he just says Azazel, which catches, you know, Koniko's eye and her ears. And then he says, hey Azazel, one more thing. Don't go out with any female in this classroom. They seem more like sluts. Or they seem more like untrustworthy, at least. Especially the one in the back. You know, the lolly. And Koniko is pissed because she was just called a lolly. And she had no way to fight back because she is a lolly. She even knows this. Azazel laughs, and so does Issei. Everyone else chuckles a little bit. Then Koniko gives them the death stare and they shut up. But Issei and Azazel are still laughing. And Azazel just sits right next to Issei. While Koniko is like right behind Issei, giving him the death stare. And then Issei is just like, yeah, I'm just gonna ignore that. So Issei's ignoring it. Azazel's ignoring it. And the teacher's trying to teach, but the teacher like senses a menacing aura behind Issei, and just sees it's Koniko staring at Issei. And is wondering what the fuck happened there. Oh well. So the teacher continues teaching. And yeah. Well, Issei and Azazel walk out. They're in the hallways about to walk to lunch. Koniko, you know, pops out of nowhere and was trying to talk to Issei and Azazel. And she says, hey, Issei, why are you hanging out with this fallen angel? And why did you call him Azazel? And Issei just says, I'm not prying into your private life, so why are you prying into mine? And then Koniko's like, also, why did you not give me any sweets before? And then Issei was like, alright, let me just go and tell you. I don't like you. You're a brat. You know, cats are supposed to be adorable, but you're just, you know, insidious on the inside. And quite literally, yeah. You don't have as much substance, you know, as much substance in your character. And you're not exactly well developed. Which Koniko looks down and just just like pats her chest and is like, like has a pouty face and just looks at Issei. And then Koniko says, Rias wants you in ORC, C club room. And then Issei says, hell no. I do not want to get any of the prostitute services from any of the people there. And I'm pretty sure there was a guy named Kiba. I don't go that way either. And then, Azazel right next to Issei starts fucking laughing. Just is on the ground just laughing his ass off. And then Koniko's like really pissed and goes to, kick him. But Issei like blocks it with his leg. And ends up saying, oh, so you want to play like that? And then Konoko's just wondering what's about to happen. So Issei, like, sweeps her leg, grabs her by the back of the neck, and flips her with ease. And Koniko just goes flinging down the hallway. Like, he basically was like, you want to go down the hall? You want to fly? And Koniko was like, no! And he's like, well, then why wait? Just he throws her down the hallway. And then Azazel gets up and says, aren't you a little bit too harsh to her? And then he says, like, well, do you remember what I told you before? Well, I'm pretty sure she was a part of it. And then Azazel was like, oh yeah, cool. Okay, we can go to lunch. So they go to lunch. All of a sudden, everyone starts staring at Issei. And they're like, can you please make some more food? Even the lunch lady is. And then he's like, you know what? Fine, might as well, I don't have anything else to do, really. So, Issei decides to go make the food again. Once he's making it, literally everyone gets attracted to the food. In those cartoons where, like, a person starts levitating because of the food? That's basically happening. His food has magical powers somehow. Just kidding. It just tastes really good. So, yeah, Issei's making the food. Azazel's trying to help. Which, he teaches Azazel more how to work the actual work in the kitchen more. And actually, get better at cooking. So, yeah, they finally make their food. And Azazel, no one goes up to Azazel for his food because it looks disgusting. And most of it's burnt. Which, Azazel's like, why is no one coming for my food? They're just going to Issei's line. Because they're in two separate lines. And then, like, Azazel, like, is just looking down. And one of the lunch ladies just taps him on the shoulder and says, you can do better next time. And then Azazel's like, you feel my pain. And then she's like, no, I don't feel all that emo shit. And literally, Azazel laughs on the inside. And fucking Issei just laughs right out loud hearing that. And serving all the lunches, comes across this one student who is completely tan with earrings and ends up, asking for his plate. Issei, is staring blankly for a second, and then says, oh yeah, here. Just scoops up the actual mashed potatoes, puts mashed potatoes, puts gravy, gives him a steak, some chicken wings, green beans, broccoli, and cheese, and a Salisbury steak, which is basically what everyone else got, because he gives a lot of food out. Because he realizes they're high school students, they're still growing. So, the guy says, thank you, 007, and then walks away, and Issei's just like having a tremendous amount of flashbacks with everything that the mad scientist Carl said, all the experiments he had to fight. And Azazel sees this and just snaps him out of it. Just snaps his fingers in front of him and just snaps him out of it. And then he asked Azazel what happened exactly. And then Azazel was like, well, you know, just pretty much snapped into the zone, I guess, your little zone area. Because some kid was talking to you earlier and they called you a certain name. I think it was 007. And then Issei instinctively said, do not call me that, in a very, like, mean tone. And Azazel was like, okay, I didn't know. And Issei's eyes slightly turned red, which freaked out Azazel a little. Because Azazel knows he's not a demon no more. So what the fuck was that? So Azazel literally, just starts conversating with Issei. And Koniko appears, and yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. Issei literally just hides all the food in a minute, and like just a second before she arrives. And yeah, she literally says, "Oh, can I get some food real quick?" And Issei says, "Oh, nope, all the food's already, given away. You came here very late." But Azazel's food is all fine. And she looks over and she sees the pudding that literally is purple and looks like it's alive slightly. And then sees a steak that's completely charcoal. And then sees, oh my god, no. The gravy is literally just steaming. I'm pretty sure it burnt a little bit of the metal. And she literally has the most disgusted face. And she literally, gets her food. Because Azazel literally puts the food on the tray for her. And says, here's your food. And then she's like, do I get any sweets at least? And yeah, Issei's like, no, we ran out already. And Issei just hid all the sweets in his pocket. Was about to take out with those. And then Koniko was like, are you sure you don't have any on you? And then Issei says, no, not really. Which Koniko, is skeptical but leaves. And she sits at the table, she starts picking at her food, and she swears that the gravy, whatever was in the gravy, started moving a little. And she was scared a little about eating it. Hell, she almost barfed over it. And everyone was looking at her food and was like, you actually got something from Allie. You poor, poor soul. And one guy walks up to her and says, do you know what happened with the person who got Allie's food before and ate it? I'm pretty sure that they were wheeled to the hospital. And then Koniko was just scared and was like, yeah, I'm not gonna eat this. And then Azazel and Issei were just laughing together at her, which she could hear. She felt like, awful. And felt really mad, so when Issei and Azazel, had some food and they were eating, which it was Issei's food, and she was like, wait, didn't Issei say that, Hyoko say that, he ran out? And then she walked up to him to confront him, and then Issei said, oh no, I ran out of food for you, not for me and my friends, yeah. Sorry about that. And then Koniko was about to kick him in the actual leg. Before she does, Issei grabs her leg and says, you want to go flying again? And Koniko just violently shakes her head no. And then Issei says, no, I don't believe you. So literally just picks her up and fucking yeets her. And everyone sees this. And they're like, oh my god, Koniko can fly. Never mind. Like, she just hits the ground very violently. And she just starts, like, fucking flying away. Like, sliding away. As soon as she hit the ground, she started sliding out the cafeteria doors. And everyone was in disbelief and was wondering what the fuck happened there. And Issei was like, well, a stupid bitch appeared. And also, one more thing. I do not choose her. And they all thought this was a Pokemon reference. And started laughing. And then Issei was like, wow, my reference actually was good. Secretly, it was not. It was horrible. Azazel was literally cringing on the inside. So was Albion. So they started eating, and they were about to head home. But all of a sudden, when they walked outside, Ria's Grimmery, Kiba were there, and Ria said, Issei Hyoko, I'd like you to join my barrage. Would you please follow me to the ORC? You can bring your fallen angel friend too. And then Issei said, well, I don't want your services in the first place, and I don't want it from a blonde-haired boy. Which, yeah, I don't go that way either. Sorry, buddy. And, like, Kiba is just, like, wondering, what the fuck is this guy on? And Reese is just blushing and saying, no, that's not what this was. And then he says, like, oh, yeah, sure. That's what they all say. Well, the thing is, I don't feel like going there and doing it with a ton of prostitutes. And then she's like, no, we're not prostitutes. And then Issei's like, all I hear is that you're prostitutes. And then all of a sudden, this happens back and forth. And then Rhea says, we're not prostitutes. Screams down the top of her lungs. Everyone hears this, and they said, wait, are they prostitutes? And everyone starts laughing. And Issei laughs. Azazel literally falls on the ground and starts laughing. Literally uncontrollably. They can't even breathe too well. And Albion inside of Issei is laughing her ass off. Because Rhea simply just screamed out that she wasn't a prostitute. And I'm going to be honest, as soon as you say that you're not something, everyone usually thinks that you are something. So, then there was a rumor later on, which Rias didn't notice yet. There was a rumor spreading around that she was a prostitute. And Issei started laughing and looking at Rias and said, I'm not going to go to your little ORC. And it was about to walk away, but Issei was like, kind of enraged in his eyes. And Kiba grabbed Issei's shoulder. And then Issei turned around and said, if you want to keep your hands, I suggest you keep them to yourself before they go flying. And then Issei felt the intimidating aura around him, the whole full bloodlust. And everyone around the vicinity felt like it was hard to breathe or stand. They were all kneeling, even Rias and Kiba now. Kiba was just holding on to Issei trying to prop himself up. And then Issei said, looks like you didn't heed my warning. Then all of a sudden, as soon as Issei walks away, and so does Azazel, because Azazel's used to the pressure by now. I mean, they live together, and since they live together, Issei wanted to get him used to the pressure. So he used the pressure around him consistently. And, well, Azazel adjusted. So they're walking home, and all of a sudden, we can switch to Kiba's point of view. Kiba's like, what the hell was that? Well, at least it didn't do anything. Then he looks down at his arm and realizes, where the fuck did my arm go? And starts screaming. His arm literally flew in the air and landed right next to Rias. And Rias is screaming in the inside, grabs Kiba's arm and tries not to let anyone see what happened. And Kiba's like, crying and shit. But Rias basically just kicks him in the gut and says, man up, pussy. It's just an arm that was cut off. I mean, didn't Issei not cry at all when there was a whole chest blown through him? Issei Hyodo did? Didn't at all? And his head was chopped off? Well, he should be a little bit more like him. And then Kiba had the pure look of fucking hatred for Rias right now. And then Rias just teleported them to the ORC, and we're going back to where Azazel and, Issei were walking home. And Azazel literally says to Issei, I'm surprised you didn't do anything to that kid. And then Issei said, I think an arm was good for now. And Azazel's like, wait, what do you mean? And then he just told him, oh yeah, I chopped off his arm. And Azazel's shocked because he didn't see shit. Literally, Issei moved so fast that really couldn't be seen by anyone. And Albion was inside really astonished by how good he was. So they head home. They're about to go to sleep, after Issei walks in the house. Azazel walks in too. They make some dinner. Issei's trying to show Azazel how to cook. But Azazel just produces more monstrosities. And yeah, honestly, he makes the mashed potatoes from school, and Issei literally puts a fork towards it, and he swears they heard that shit roar. You swear he heard that shit roar at him. And then he literally starts saying, it's alive! And they start laughing because they just quoted someone who was very, very much influenced in the horror genre. If you don't know who it is, you need to watch more horror movies. Anyway, so they both, start eating Issei's food. They ignore, Azazel's food. And, Issei doesn't want that shit in his house, so he literally just takes that shit outside and just eats it. He just throws it with all his force, and it just goes into light space. Not in light space, but it just goes a few hundred meters away. With just a little bit of force. And then Issei just goes up inside his house, plays some video games with Azazel in his room. They hang out a little bit. Azazel's trying to get more info about what Issei went through. But Issei just doesn't really want to tell Azazel. So he says, I'll tell you when the time's right. I mean, it wouldn't be fair to tell you if I haven't told my friend yet. And then Azazel's like, oh, you have a friend? And he's like, yeah, Albion. Which Azazel's shocked a little, but honestly isn't too shocked anymore because what he could do before, so this was now the realm of possibilities. So, yeah, Issei goes to sleep, and now we're going to switch to the ORC's point of view. Rias is recruiting one unknown person who literally talks to them and says, hello ORC, my name is Mal, I would like to join you. So, would you be willing to take me with you guys? Pretty please. And has a sinister sly smile. They were reluctant, but they sense a lot of power from him. So Rias, the hungry, crazy bitch, just accepts him immediately. Everyone else senses this ominous aura, and they're like, that ain't the right choice. Deny the motherfucker. And then Rias is like, nah. He gets out all the palms that were in Issei, places them inside of the guy. And then she asks, what's your name? And then the guy thinks a little and says, my name is Mal. Dun, dun, dun. Who was this Mal character? And will Azazel ever get good at cooking? Find out next time on What If Issei Was a Bioweapon? Part 4. Find out next time on Part 4. This is Part 3, and I'm so sorry that my previous Part 3 was lackluster, or wasn't as good. I was way too tired. This is my redo on it. I know it's not as action-packed, but it's more, funny. But I promise Part 4 is going to have a lot more action. Okay? Alright, so before I, cut this off, I'm going to do another What If story tomorrow. And tomorrow it's going to be What If on Subaru again. Just because I feel like it, so expect a What If on Subaru tomorrow.